Welcome to Heartline Stories. Today's story follows. On a stormy night, a small-town baker named Nova helped a stranger in need. Little did she know, that stranger wasn't just anyone. He was a billionaire with a hidden agenda. As the days went on, John's generosity turned into something much more than business advice. But when he finally reveals why he helped Nova and his true feelings for her, everything changes. Can Nova handle this shocking twist, or will the secrets John is hiding tear them apart? You won't believe what happens next in this heart-stopping tale, and let us know where you're watching from. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories. It was a cold, rainy night in the small town of Willow Creek. The wind howled, and the streets were nearly empty as most people stayed indoors, warm and cozy. Inside the little bakery on Main Street, Nova Parker worked hard behind the counter. She loved her job as a baker, even though it was tiring. The smell of fresh bread and pastries filled the air, making the bakery feel like home. Nova had inherited the bakery from her grandmother, and it was the heart of the town. People came from all over to try her famous cinnamon rolls and apple pies. Even though business was good, Nova often felt lonely. She had no family left, and she spent most of her time baking and running the shop. That night, as the storm grew stronger, Nova noticed a man walking down the street. He looked cold and tired, his clothes soaked through from the rain. Without thinking, she opened the door and stepped outside. "Hey, are you okay?" she called out. The man turned, and for a moment their eyes met. He looked surprised to see someone in the storm. He was tall, with dark hair and a weary expression. He smiled faintly. "I'm fine, just trying to find shelter from this storm," he said, his voice warm despite the chilly air. "Come inside the bakery," Nova offered quickly. "You can warm up and have a cup of coffee. It's not much, but it's better than standing out in the rain." The man hesitated for a moment, but then nodded. "Thank you," he said softly. As the man stepped inside, the warmth of the bakery embraced him. Nova quickly set him up with a cup of hot coffee and a plate of fresh pastries. They sat together at a small table near the window, watching the rain pour down outside. "You're a lifesaver," the man said, sipping his coffee. "I didn't expect to find kindness in a storm like this." Nova smiled. "Well, I like to think a little kindness can go a long way." They talked for a while, and Nova learned that the man's name was John. He told her he was traveling through town on business but had gotten caught in the storm. John seemed like an ordinary man, someone you'd meet anywhere. But there was something about him that made Nova curious. After a while, John stood up to leave. "I really appreciate your kindness," he said, grabbing his jacket. "I'll be sure to pay you back someday." "There's no need for that," Nova replied, smiling. "It was just the right thing to do." But John shook his head. "I insist. You've done more for me than anyone else has in a long time." With a smile, John left the bakery, disappearing into the stormy night. Nova stood at the window, watching him walk away, feeling a strange sense of wonder. It wasn't every day that a stranger came in, asking for help, and then left with such a mysterious air. The next morning, Nova opened the bakery early, just as she always did. The storm had passed, and the sun was shining brightly. The town was waking up, and the streets were busy again. As Nova was arranging the pastries in the display case, she noticed a large black car pulling up outside the bakery. The door opened, and to her surprise, it was John, the man from the night before. "John!" Nova exclaimed, feeling confused. "What are you doing here?" He smiled and walked in, holding a large envelope in his hand. "I'm here to keep my promise," he said, handing her the envelope. Nova opened it and found a check inside, a check for a large amount of money, more than she had ever seen in her entire life. "Wait a minute," Nova said, her voice trembling. This is too much. I can't accept this." John smiled again, his eyes twinkling. "I insist, Nova. You see, I'm not just any traveler passing through Willow Creek. I'm John Williams, CEO of Williams Enterprises. I have more money than I know what to do with, and I want to help people who show kindness and generosity." Nova blinked in surprise. "Wait, you're a CEO?" "Yes," John said, nodding. "I'm a billionaire, actually. I travel around looking for people who make a difference in the world. And when I found you last night, I knew I wanted to give back in some way. Nova stood there in shock, unsure of what to say. A billionaire? She had just helped a stranger, and now he was offering her money that could change her life forever. But why me? She asked, still stunned. John laughed softly. Because you didn't hesitate to help me, even when you didn't know who I was. You treated me like a regular person, not a wealthy businessman. Nova thought for a moment, still processing everything. I never expected this. I was just doing what I thought was right. And that's why I admire you, John said, smiling warmly. You see, I've been looking for someone like you, a person who values kindness and hard work. I want to help you take your bakery to the next level. Nova's heart raced. Could this be real? Was John really offering to help her expand her bakery, turning it into something bigger than she ever dreamed? Nova stood frozen, staring at John, unsure of what to say. The check in her hand seemed to grow heavier with each passing second. I I don't know what to say, Nova finally stammered, still trying to wrap her mind around everything. Are you serious? I mean, this is so much money. John nodded. I'm serious, Nova. I've been looking for a way to support small businesses that have heart like yours. You've worked hard, and I believe you deserve a chance to grow and do something amazing with this bakery. The idea of expanding the bakery seemed like a dream to Nova. She had always wanted to offer more treats to the town, maybe even open another location in a nearby city. But the cost of it all, she never imagined it could happen. And now here was John, a billionaire, offering to help her make it a reality. Why me, though? There are so many businesses that could use help, Nova asked, her voice filled with curiosity. What makes my bakery special? John's smile softened. It's not just the bakery, Nova. It's you. The way you cared for me last night, without hesitation, says a lot about who you are. You didn't see a wealthy stranger. You saw someone who needed help. That's rare, and I admire that. Nova felt a warm wave of gratitude. She never expected something like this to happen, especially not from someone like John. But I don't know if I'm ready for something so big, she admitted, looking down at the check again. What if I mess it up? What if I don't know how to handle it all? John placed a hand gently on her shoulder. You don't have to do it alone. I'll be here to guide you, to help with the business side of things. And trust me, you've already done the hardest part. Creating a place that people love. Nova couldn't help but smile. Her bakery was a small, cozy shop where people felt at home. She'd worked tirelessly to make it a special place, but she'd never thought it could grow beyond what it was. Now the opportunity was in her hands. I'm honored, Nova said quietly, still processing it all. But I don't want to just take your money. I want to make this work for myself, for the people who have supported me all these years. John gave a nod of approval. That's exactly why I want to help you. You've earned this opportunity. You've shown you're dedicated, and that's more important than anything else. The conversation shifted from talk of the bakery's future to the practical steps that would come next. John offered his advice on how to expand, suggesting new marketing strategies and ways to bring in more customers. Nova was amazed at how much he knew about business, yet he never made her feel small. He was kind, patient, and genuinely excited about helping her achieve her dreams. As they talked, the clock ticked past noon, and the bakery started to fill with customers. The usual chatter and laughter filled the room, but Nova couldn't shake the feeling that her life was about to change forever. She had always dreamed of something more for her bakery, but she never imagined it would come from a stranger who'd walked in during a storm. As John got ready to leave, he smiled at Nova again. I'll be back in a few weeks to check on how things are going. You'll be fine, Nova. I believe in you. Thank you, John, Nova said, her voice filled with gratitude. I won't let you down. After John left, Nova stood behind the counter, feeling both excited and overwhelmed. She had so many ideas spinning in her head. Could she really make this work? Was she ready for this big change? She knew the road ahead would be full of challenges, but for the first time in a long time, she felt hopeful. Maybe, just maybe, her bakery could become something far bigger than she ever dreamed. The next few days were a whirlwind. Nova barely had time to breathe as she tried to process everything that had happened. She kept thinking back to John's words and the check he had handed her. How could someone who had everything, money, success, influence, want to help someone like her? A small-town baker with a dream. She didn't want to waste his trust, but at the same time, Nova wasn't sure where to start. Her bakery was already doing well, but growing it into something bigger felt like stepping into uncharted territory. She couldn't do it all on her own, especially without some guidance. Nova spent the next few nights reading through business books and watching online tutorials. She wrote down ideas for a new menu, plans for a possible second location, and how she could market her bakery better. She was eager but overwhelmed. It was a lot to take in, and she knew she had to make decisions that would affect not just her, but the people who depended on her bakery. One morning, just as Nova was getting ready to open the bakery, she received an unexpected call from John. "Hey, Nova," John's voice came through the phone. "How's everything going?" Nova felt a wave of relief hearing from him. "It's been a bit of a challenge, to be honest. I've been trying to plan how to expand, but it's so much more than I imagined." "I know it can feel overwhelming, but you're doing great," John said reassuringly. "Remember, this is a big step, and you don't have to do it all at once. Take your time. I'll be here to help with the tricky parts, and we can take things one step at a time." That simple reminder made Nova feel a little lighter. John's support was a lifeline, and she realized she didn't have to have all the answers right away. She just had to stay true to her vision and keep moving forward. A week later, John returned to Willow Creek, this time with more than just advice. He arrived with a team of professionals, business consultants, designers, and even a marketing expert, ready to help turn Nova's bakery into something bigger. Nova was both excited and nervous. She never expected her small-town bakery to get this kind of attention. The team spent the next few weeks working with Nova, helping her redesign the space, improving her online presence, and brainstorming ideas to attract more customers. Nova worked alongside them every day, learning as much as she could. She was amazed by the changes, but at times she felt like she was in over her head. One afternoon, John stopped by the bakery to check on how things were going. Nova was busy preparing a new batch of cinnamon rolls, but she paused when she saw him. "I have to admit," Nova said with a laugh, wiping her hands on her apron, "this is all a little overwhelming." John smiled warmly. "I can imagine, but you're handling it better than most would. You're not just learning the business side. You're keeping the heart of this place alive, and that's what matters most." Nova appreciated his words. She knew that all the business advice in the world wouldn't matter if she lost what made the bakery special: the feeling of home, the warmth, and the love she put into every dish. A few months later, Nova's bakery was unrecognizable. The small, cozy shop had expanded with a beautiful new interior and a larger selection of treats. She had also opened a second location in a nearby town, and business was booming. Nova couldn't believe how far she had come. It wasn't just the money John had invested. It was the guidance, the confidence, and the belief he had in her that had made all the difference. On the day of the grand opening of the second bakery, John showed up with a big smile. "You did it, Nova. Look at how far you've come." Nova smiled back, feeling proud. "We did it, John. I couldn't have done it without your help." "I'll always be here for you," John said, his voice sincere. "And remember, you're not just building a business. You're building something that will last. This bakery is a part of you, and it will always reflect your heart." As the ribbon was cut and customers flooded into the new bakery, Nova felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. She had worked hard, and with John's support, she had turned her dream into reality. But more than anything, she felt grateful for the kindness John had shown her that stormy night, the kindness that had changed her life forever. But just as she was enjoying the success of her hard work, Nova couldn't help but wonder, was this really the end of the story? Or was there more to John's mysterious past that she still hadn't uncovered? As Nova's second bakery continued to thrive, she couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. She had learned so much from John, and their friendship had grown over time. But there was still something about him that felt a little mysterious. Why had he come to Willow Creek in the first place? What did he really want? One evening, as Nova closed up the bakery, John came by for his usual visit. They sat together at one of the tables, sipping coffee and chatting about the success of the new location. The laughter of customers and the soft glow of the lights made the bakery feel warm and inviting. "John," Nova began, her voice a bit hesitant, "I have to ask, why did you help me in the first place? I mean, you didn't know me, and yet you've done so much for me. It's hard to understand." John set his cup down and looked at her thoughtfully. "I get why you'd wonder. The truth is, Nova, I didn't just come to Willow Creek for business. I came here because I wanted to help someone who truly deserved it. You're special, and I saw that from the moment I walked into your bakery. But there's more to my story that I've kept from you. I didn't just want to help your bakery grow. I wanted to help you." Nova's heart raced as she listened closely, sensing that something important was about to come out. "Before I was a billionaire," John continued, "I wasn't always so fortunate. I grew up in a small town, just like this one. But after a terrible family tragedy, I was forced to leave everything behind. I built my fortune over the years, but I always felt like something was missing. I wanted to give back, to make a real difference in people's lives. That's why I started looking for someone like you. Someone who could use a hand, but who also had the heart to make a real impact." Nova was speechless. She had no idea that John's story was so personal. It wasn't just about business. It was about healing, about finding purpose. "But there's one more thing," John said, his voice softening. "There's something else I've been meaning to tell you, Nova. Over the time we've spent together, I've realized that you're not just a business partner or a friend to me. You mean more than that. I've developed feelings for you." Nova's eyes widened in surprise. Could it be? Could John, her benefactor, her friend, have feelings for her? John continued, his words coming out carefully. "I know it might seem sudden, but I've spent so much time thinking about this. I never expected this kind of connection. I'm not asking for anything right now, but I wanted you to know how I feel." Nova felt a mix of emotions. She had always admired John for his kindness and generosity, but she hadn't expected this twist in their story. She thought about everything they had been through, the late nights, the advice, the laughter, and the changes they'd both made in each other's lives. "I don't know what to say," Nova finally whispered, feeling overwhelmed by his honesty. "I never thought about us that way, but I've come to care for you too. You've been so supportive, and I've never met anyone like you." John smiled, relieved. "That's all I needed to hear. Whatever happens, I'm just glad you know the truth." As the evening wore on, the two of them sat in silence, each lost in their own thoughts. It was clear that their relationship had shifted. Nova wasn't sure what the future held, but she knew one thing: she wasn't alone anymore. And as the stormy night that had brought them together had passed, so too had the uncertainty of her future. With John's help, Nova had built something incredible. And as they both looked ahead, they knew there were more adventures to come, together.